Imagine a war so catastrophic that it changed not just the world map, but also the course of human history. Now what if I told you that this war was almost entirely triggered by the death of a single man? Yes, you heard it right. The great conflict that was World War I, a battle that involved over 30 nations and claimed the lives of millions, was set in motion by an event as seemingly insignificant as the assassination of a single individual. That man was none other than Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. His assassination in June 1914 during a visit to Sarajevo was the spark that ignited the tinderbox of tensions that had been building up in Europe. But to fully comprehend the magnitude of this event, we must take a step back. The Europe of the early 20th century was a continent divided, not just geographically but also ideologically and politically. The major powers had formed intricate alliances, a veritable web of treaties and agreements that ensured that a conflict involving one of them would drag the others in. The assassination of Archduke Ferdinand provided just such a trigger. Austria-Hungary, backed by its powerful ally Germany, declared war on Serbia, the country accused of orchestrating the assassination. This set off a domino effect, with Russia coming to the aid of Serbia, France supporting Russia, and Britain, bound by treaty to protect Belgium, joining in when Germany invaded Belgium as part of its war strategy. This, however, is just the tip of the iceberg. The assassination was merely the spark that ignited a larger conflict fueled by nationalism, imperialism, and a complex network of alliances. So, a single bullet set off a chain reaction that plunged the world into a devastating war. This was the unheard origin of World War I, a conflict that would forever change the course of human history. But remember, this is just the beginning of our journey into the depths of this global conflict. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the unfolding of the war, the turning tides, the end and aftermath, and the enduring legacy of World War I. With the stage set by political maneuvers and alliances, the world watched in horror as the First Global War began. In the summer of 1914, the world seemed to hold its breath as Germany, one of the most powerful empires of the time, invaded the neutral country of Belgium. This invasion was not only a strategic move for Germany, intended to outflank the French army, but it was also a stark violation of international law. Belgium, a country that had committed to neutrality, found itself in the crossfire of a rapidly escalating global conflict. As the German forces marched through Belgium, the world watched in stunned silence, but not for long. Britain, bound by the Treaty of London to protect Belgium's neutrality, could not stand idly by. On the 4th of August, Britain declared war on Germany. The Great War, as it was then known, had truly begun. The early battles on the Western Front were a brutal introduction to the new reality of modern warfare. This was not the chivalrous combat of earlier centuries. It was a war of attrition, of trenches and machine guns, where advances were measured in yards, not miles. The Battle of the Marne, fought in September, saw the Allies halt the German advance into France, saving Paris from capture, but setting the stage for 4 years of grueling trench warfare. Battles like these were fought with an intensity and a scale never seen before. The world was witnessing the birth of total war, where entire nations, not just their armies, were mobilized for the conflict. The home front became just as important as the battlefront, with factories churning out weapons and ammunition, and civilians contributing to the war effort in countless ways. As the war escalated, it was clear that this was not going to be a quick or easy conflict. The optimism of those early days, the belief that the war would be over by Christmas, was quickly replaced by the grim reality of a protracted and devastating global conflict. The stage was set for a war that would change the world forever. As the war dragged on, the lines of conflict grew more complex and the stakes higher. The world stage was set for a cataclysmic shift as the mid-war years unfurled. One of the most consequential events during this period was unquestionably the entry of the United States into the war. Until April of 1917, America had remained neutral, watching from the sidelines, but a series of provocations, including unrestricted submarine warfare by Germany, forced the United States to pick up arms. This added a new dimension to the conflict, bolstering the resources and morale of the Allies, while dealing a blow to the Central Powers. Simultaneously, another seismic event was taking place, the Russian Revolution. A wave of discontent had been brewing within Russia, fueled by a combination of military failures, economic hardship, and political unrest. In November 1917, this discontent erupted into a full-blown revolution. The Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, seized power and immediately sought to extricate Russia from the war. The repercussions of this were twofold. On one hand, it eased pressure on the Central Powers on the Eastern Front. On the other, it sparked a fear of communism in Western nations, a fear that would shape global politics for decades to come. But the heart of the Great War was in the trenches. It was here, in the muck and the mire, that the real human cost of the war was felt. Soldiers on both sides faced abysmal conditions, with constant shelling, disease, and the ever-present threat of death. The Battle of Passchendaele alone resulted in over 500,000 casualties. The trenches were not just a physical battlefield but a psychological one, forever etching the horrors of war into the minds of those who survived. With new players on the field, the war was far from over. The tides were turning, setting the stage for the final acts of this global conflict. As we'll see, the events of these mid-war years had far-reaching consequences, forever altering the course of history. Finally, after 4 long years of destruction and death, the world saw the end of the Great War. The year was 1918, and the world held its breath as the armistice was signed in a railway carriage in the forest of Compiègne, France. The 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month marked the cessation of hostilities. The guns fell silent, and the world exhaled. This was not the end, however, but merely a pause, a respite from the fighting. The final peace would come some months later with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. This treaty, signed on the 28th of June 1919 in the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles, officially ended the state of war between Germany and the Allied powers. And yet, the end of the war did not bring about the peace that many had hoped for. The Treaty of Versailles was harsh, and its terms were seen by many, especially in Germany, as punitive and unjust. There were territorial losses, military restrictions, and hefty reparations to be paid. The burden of guilt for the war was placed squarely on Germany's shoulders, a burden that would sow the seeds of resentment and discontent. In the aftermath of the Great War, the world was forever changed. Empires crumbled, new nations were born, and the map of the world was redrawn. The war had taken a heavy toll, not just in terms of lives lost, but also in its social, political, and economic impact. It was a war that shook the foundations of the world, a war that would leave scars that have yet to fully heal. And so, in the ashes of the Great War, the world was reshaped. It was a time of great change, a time of uncertainty, but also a time of hope. For even in the darkest of times, there is always the promise of a new dawn, a new beginning. In the aftermath of the war, the world was forever changed. The Great War, as it was then known, left a profound and lasting legacy that would shape the course of the 20th century and beyond. The political landscape was transformed. The map of Europe was redrawn with the dissolution of empires and the emergence of new nations. The Russian, German, Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires crumbled, making way for new states born out of nationalistic fervor. These changes, however, were not without their challenges, as the seeds of future conflicts were sown in the peace treaties that ended the war. Then there was the advent of new warfare technology. The war marked the first large-scale use of chemical weapons, tanks, and aircraft in combat. These innovations, born out of necessity and desperation, forever altered the nature of warfare. Instead of the grand charges of cavalry, future wars would be marked by mechanized warfare and the grim reality of trench warfare. But perhaps the most profound legacy of World War I was its psychological impact. The sheer scale of the conflict and the unprecedented loss of life left a generation scarred. The war poets such as Wilfred Owen and Siegfried Sassoon captured the despair and disillusionment felt by many. The term shell shock was coined to describe the trauma experienced by soldiers, and the recognition of this condition marked an important step in our understanding of mental health. The war also had a profound effect on society at large. It challenged traditional social structures, accelerated the push for women's suffrage, and led to significant advances in medicine and industry. World War I was not just a conflict, it was a turning point in human history. It was a cataclysmic event that shook the world, reshaping our understanding of warfare, politics, and humanity itself. Its legacy continues to echo through the decades, a reminder of the tragedy and the lessons we must never forget. Even today, a century later, the echoes of the Great War still reverberate around us. The political lines drawn in its wake, the technological advancements born out of its necessity, and the societal changes it spurred, are all still very much a part of our world. The lessons learned from the war, both in terms of the devastating cost of conflict and the resilience of the human spirit, continue to inform our decisions. The war served as a stark reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink, but also of the heights to which it can rise in the face of adversity. It's a lesson that, in our increasingly interconnected world, is more relevant than ever. As we continue to navigate the complexities of the 21st century, let us never forget the legacy of the Great War and the lessons it has to teach us. It wasn't just a conflict, it was a turning point in human history. The echoes of World War I continue to resonate, a testament to its enduring impact on our world, and as we remember, let's ensure that its lessons are not forgotten, but rather used as a guide to navigate our future. Thank you for joining us on this historical journey. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into history.